So welcome to This Cycling Life Leadership Bytes. Today I'm delighted to welcome Alex Stieda. Alex is a former professional cyclist who competed at the Commonwealth Games, at the Olympics, and was also, quite incredibly, the first North American to wear the yellow jersey at the Tour de France. But perhaps rather than me say too much, Alex, it'd be great for you to say a few words to introduce yourself.
All right. Thank you, JB. Thanks for having me. I retired from professional cycling in 1992. Started as a junior in 77, and then had an incredible, great, fun career with mostly Team 711, a great bunch of guys. And it's just, cycling has just become such a big part of my life. I'm 59 now, and it's still a big part of my daily regime.
Great. And that was a great thing about us connecting, Alex. I mean, I've, of course, talked to lots of people from the cycling world over the years, but, when we first connected, I was just blown away by how much passion and enthusiasm you still seem to have for this beautiful sport. So it's really great to have you here. But maybe you can say a few words, Alex, about, how did you get into cycling as a kid? Where did it all start for you?
Yeah, growing up in Canada, in Vancouver, Canada, was a little bit of a, just happenstance, really. I was playing ice hockey as a kid, and I was 16 years old, and for some reason I said, I need to do something in the summer to stay fit for hockey in the winter. And that was before there was dryland camps, and it was all formalized. So I just started riding a road bike around where I lived in Coquitlam, just a suburb of Vancouver, very hilly, and I just started riding more and more. And my parents, really helped stimulate that, encouraged me. But my neighbor 2 houses down said he was a Masters Club veteran, and he said, "Well, let's come out to this time trial together," and it just started going from there. Yeah, so bit by bit by bit.
Yeah. And you then, did go on to, racing at the, of course, national level for Canada, then internationally with Commonwealth Games, and as you said, 84 onto the Olympics. You traveled, throughout Europe. You raced North America. What do you recall as being kind of your toughest day ever on a bike?
The toughest day on the bike? That's a very tough question, Jamie, because it sort of steps up in increments. Right. Just when you thought you had your toughest day, another day comes along that was even harder. But I do remember going down to Oregon for a stage race in Bend, Oregon. I was probably 19, 20 years old, and I was a guest rider for a club team. And one stage up Mount Bachelor, it was raining at the classic, raining at the bottom, turns to snow at the top. But the finish was not at the top, it was back at the bottom. So you had to descend back down, back into the rain. I mean, everything was frozen on my body. That was when we actually had laces on our shoes, which, I guess they have now again, but I couldn't even undo the laces on my shoes, never mind undo the toe strap.
Wow.
I distinctly remember that day as being super hard. Now, there were other days after that were hard too, but that was really my first memorable experience about just pain and suffering like that.
Yeah, amazing. Well, of course, and I've read your personal history about traveling to Europe. You came to Belgium as a young guy. In those days, really having to do it very much all on your own, and then coming to Europe again, sort of as a rookie into the world of pro cycling at that time, even though you had raced in North America. With all these experiences of getting yourself as an individual to whether it was Commonwealth Games or Olympics or making it to the Tour de France, later on in your life, did you have a chance to kind of reflect upon what those experiences, and particularly those experiences as an individual, having to have the drive and the fortitude to get through some of the tough experiences that you had? How did they kind of help you later in life?
Well, after I retired in 92, I turned to business and became a sales manager in the bike industry. And then since then, in 25 years in IT services. And, I reflect back on my cycling days a lot. and thinking about, getting pumped up for race days and getting excited about, getting to the start line. And that's very similar to, before you make a presentation to the CEO of an organization, you get excited, and you get nervous, and you learn how to deal with that, and you also learn how to, what we call save your matches, in cycling. But in business, you don't want to chase every deal. You want to chase the deals that matter, and you learn to find those deals and chase them. You also learned about teamwork, right? And how to work as a team, and how important it is for the domestics to do their work for the leader. But sometimes you're the domestic, sometimes, you take turns, and that's important to understand those roles and share that workload.
Yeah. Have you, I mean, if we come back to the sort of the individual, aspect as well, one of the things I've sometimes talked to, former elite athletes about is sometimes also a bit of the frustration, because, you were a pursuitist on the track, you were a road rider. And of course, it is to a large degree a team sport, particularly when you get into multi-day stage racing. However, one of the frustrations I've heard from some other former pros is the fact that, as an individual athlete, it is very much an onus upon you and yourself in terms of setting your goals and, doing the hard work when no one is looking. And if you do that and you've got some natural talent, often the results will come. However, some people have said to me, actually my friend Mick Rogers said to me recently, he said, in business, it's kind of sometimes not like that. You do the best that you can as an individual, but there are so many more variables sometimes at play, and you get frustrated with that. Did you also experience that a little bit, sort of as a high individual achiever, then having to get into that world of business with working with others in a different kind of way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it depends on the team that you're involved with. I mean, in cycling is the same thing. Any team sport for that matter. Some teams work better than others together. Let's put it that way. And yes, you do have to be, an excellent self-starter and do the work yourself. But a lot of things are out of your control in the business world, especially with larger organizations. It becomes difficult to feel like you can contribute because you're just, a small speck on the bigger spectrum. Yeah. So, that other step that I've learned, or lesson I've learned is you always keep moving forward. I mean, if you stop pedaling, you're out of the race.
Right.
So it's just, you're going to have trials and tribulations along the way, and you just have to keep moving forward and keep taking those progressive steps. And it sometimes it feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but you're still moving forward.
Right. As Matty Heyman famously said, when interviewed about his Paris-Roubaix win, right. Always keep riding, right? Don't give up. So that's resilience, right? Because I mean, I guess it's important to set. What about with the kind of goal setting? Because in sport, you by the very nature of being an athlete, we set goals for ourselves, right? For this year, for you, before of course the cancellation because of the pandemic, I mean, you'd set a pretty big goal, which was getting back to the elite level and racing the Gran Fondo Worlds, which were going to be in your native Canada this year. So, as athletes, we can set these kind of event-based goals. How did you find that different in business?
Well, I mean, I naturally default to setting goals. Sort of short-term goals, mid-term goals, long-term goals in business. I mean, it could be simply as, just doing some online training to understand more about the technology you're working with. Just a small step, to sort of start to, do some self-improvement. But also, I still like to prepare to win and think about what it's like to win a deal. And what are the steps I would take to get to that point? And I think I just do that naturally because that's what I've always done as an athlete. And that doesn't, to me, that seems obvious, but for a lot of people, they don't do that. They don't think of themselves in a winning position, and whether it's in business or sport. And I think there's just a real correlation there, and it's something that's embedded in my DNA.
Yeah. How about, again, I guess as an elite athlete and someone who's really competed at the top level, you're a highly driven person. I mean, you're a motivated person. How do you find sometimes working with people who, because in the business world, you do find a lot of people sometimes who are kind of just cruising, I mean, They turn up every day and they do their 9 to 5 and they're happy getting their paycheck at the end of the month, but they may not have that same level of drive. So, I mean, how do you deal with that then, maybe as a leader or as a team member or counterpart with people who don't have that same kind of drive?
Yeah, and everyone comes to sport and to business, from different perspectives, different worlds, and they're motivated differently for, So what I try to do is try to understand where they're coming from, right? Could be people that are on your team, could be people that are on, another team that you have to work with to get to your partner with to get a win. And I just try to share some knowledge that I've learned in the past, maybe tell a story about, how I've, accomplished a certain goal, or I like telling the story about, being a professional cyclist. You race over 100 race days a year. Maybe you put yourself in a winning break 20% of the time, and then you get a chance to win 5 races because the sprint turns out right, everything works out in your favor, and you do the right thing, and you win 5 races. Well, that's a very low percentage winning rate, 5%. Let's say 5 wins out of 100 races. But if as a team, you each win 5 races and there's 10 people on the team, now you're winning 50% of the races.
Yeah.
Right? So that simple analogy, I think, sort of rings true for a lot of people, and everyone then sort of starts to feel like they can contribute and share.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And how about, again, I guess if we're looking for a parallel, as athletes, we set our target events, and we, train towards those target events, but also what we understand, I guess, as athletes is that we really have to balance, in a way, kind of, how do we put it, like the really high gear, really high intensity training, like when you're doing your threshold efforts or your micro intervals or whatever, your sprint work. Then you have to do your kind of endurance work. And of course, what you also have to do is let your body recover. So you have to have this kind of downtime in a way where you allow your body to process, all of that work you're doing. What's your experience of that in the business world? Because, I worked for 20 years, in business schools and working with leaders. And often what I saw was that people tended to be in that high gear too much, and in fact, what I sort of started to appreciate was that as human beings, whether it's business or sport, you can't always be at that really high level of intensity. You need the less intense work and you need the recovery. What was your experience of that over the, sort of experience of your career?
Well, it's tough. Sometimes you you might have a sales manager that's driving you day in, day out, and that's definitely a tricky situation because you're driven by numbers and you have to achieve certain targets. But I just make sure that I build sort of time to decompress, if you will, whether it's the weekends, just shut off, don't work on the weekends, right? And just force myself to not, feel guilty that I'm not working, for instance, right? Because I know I need that recharge time, and as an athlete, in that training cycle, you do need that time to recharge mentally and physically. And if you don't do that, you become overtrained. We know that as veteran athletes, but many young business people who maybe haven't been athletes like that and haven't been in a structured physical training program don't understand that. They just think work harder and you'll get better and stronger and achieve more results. Yeah. Ultimately, there's a price to pay for that severe workload. And I've seen a number of business associates fall off the wayside due to various issues. Whether it's it could be just a physical breakdown in their body, or they could become addicted to certain types of stimulants, and then next year they're not in the workforce anymore, and you're wondering what happened to him. Oh yeah, now I know why, because he never took a break. And that basically that burnout factor hit them hard.
Yeah, cool. And I mean, Alex, it's as I mentioned at the start of this talk, I mean, you're still incredibly passionate about kind of riding your bike. I mean, you're in great condition. You can see that just looking at you. But what sort of inspired you to get back into competition again? Because you mentioned to me a couple of days ago that you were hoping to ride the Gran Fondo Worlds this year. You might maybe do that next year or heading off into the future. What keeps inspiring you to compete and to ride your bike as you head into, because you're turning 60 soon, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like I need to do it. I don't know. There's that feeling of tuning my body and my mind to get ready for an event is like no other, and just staying fit. I mean, I feel just the ability to keep my body fit and strong. I think really helps me, with my day-to-day life, and whether it's in business or just being able to do, work around my house, or ride my bike with my kids, and I was riding around doing some pretty serious mountain biking in the area where I live with my son, who's 26, and I looked across at him and said, how many dads, of your friends who are in their 50s can keep up with their son, and he said, none that I know of, so that was really kind of an eye-opening moment. Like, yeah, it's all worth it, because now I can just go rip up trails with my son and really have a smile on my face and not worry about, trying to keep up.
Yeah. Fantastic. I mean, it's, I was racing last year at the World Track Championships in Manchester, where they just announced that they were introducing the 70 plus age group. And then, of course, on the road now with the UCI, we now have a 100 plus category. So, my kids always joke around with me. They say, Dad, you just keep going until everybody else is.
That's right. That's right.
Literally out of the race, and you'll get there eventually. But I think that's one of the amazing things, isn't it, about being a masters athlete? It's not like being the young guy going for a contract or looking at that sort of, very relatively short horizon. For us as masters athletes, there's many, many years of biking ahead of us. And now with whether it's gravel, mountain bike, track or road, there's so many opportunities.
And I've also taken up a winter sport called skimo.
Really?
Skimo, where you skin up a mountain slope on skins, and then you take your skins off and then ski down, skin up, boot pack for a section, ski down.
Wow.
In Europe, it's very, very big. Not so much in North America, but we have events here that I take part in. In fact, I helped put on a race in the Rockies.
Great.
And that gives me a little bit of a distraction from riding my bike all year long and doing something different. And it's a really cool, fun, challenging, technical event.
I'm sure it is, mate. But anything involving ice and snow is not for Australians. You should know that. But I'm sure as Canadians you get excited about it. But all good for you. All good for you. Although you also told me you've done the Cape Epic in South Africa or some other big events. So.
Well, I've done it twice, and they do have a special award for people who have done it 3 times. So I need to find an excuse to go and do Cape Epic again. I need a good partner. I did it with Tom.
I put my hand up. The Cape Epic's on my bucket list, so maybe that's something that you and I can talk about.
All right.
A future TCL project.
Well, let's talk to Alan Davis and get on a program then and get ready.
Absolutely. Good. Alex Stieda, thank you very much for your time. It's been fantastic talking to you on the cycling life. We'd love to have you back, of course, in whether it's again as an interview or to also bring some of your incredible training, coaching, technical knowledge to our viewers as well. So for everyone watching, if you do like this video, please do give us the thumbs up. Of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel. What you'll also see in the notes to this video are some links to Alex's website, his blog, which is absolutely brilliant. Highly recommend that. And also his contact information. So any contact or follow-up questions you have, you can certainly reach out to Alex. Alex Stieda, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Jamie.